Hey everyone, welcome back. So I've talked about my decision to quit my job a little bit in my 4-part personal spiritual warfare playlist, which is still up on my channel if you go to my playlist tab. It's my only playlist currently, and it's a 4-part mini-series chronicling the major points and the major events of my spiritual warfare experience. So feel free to check that out for more context after this video if you're interested. But I wanted to dedicate this video entirely to discussing 1, what brought me to my decision to quit my job. 2, how I consulted with God in prayer for months before making my decision. 3, how I knew I'd received confirmation from God to quit my job, to know that I was following His will. And 4, how I feel about my decision now that it's been about 5 to 6 years since I left that role. So I know that it's a major life decision that many people, probably even most people, contemplate and struggle with. And this is not me telling you to quit your job, because following God is not for the weak, and neither are His greatest blessings. This is my testimony on how I came to the decision to follow God for myself, and how to consult with God and seek His confirmation or redirection on the matter. Okay, so let's begin. So I quit my job back in the spring of 2019, April 2019, and it took me months to make this decision, not because I was unsure if I should quit or not, but because I was scared, and I think that's the case for most of us. Also, I was being paid well, and I lived in uptown Manhattan. I was living in New York City. I had my own 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in my own name, no co-signer, and I was able to keep my cost of living under 30% of my income with the money I was making at this job. I had a really nice salary, especially for the amount of work I had. I was very comfortable, but I was miserable. My work environment was very toxic, and it was making me both physically and emotionally sick on a very constant basis for months. And I knew God was telling me to quit, because even as well as this job pays, I was just pushing paper. I was not fulfilling my calling, and I wasn't in alignment with God's will for my life. That much I knew for sure. But I was scared. I was like, what am I going to do? Quit this job just to end up at another job that's just like it, with new people and new problems? But when I tell you my spirit began sinking to a new level of numbness, I knew I was losing my spark for life, because I wasn't really living. I was writing technical instruction manuals for a living. And both God and I knew I was meant to do more than that. God was calling me to exercise my creative talents in writing. But again, I was scared, so I wasn't being obedient. I was trusting my paycheck more than I was trusting God. And soon after I started to lose my spark, I felt like I was starting to lose my favor. Everyday things in my everyday life started to go wrong. They started to go south. And then I realized that it was only God's favor that helped me get this job. It was only God's favor that helped me get to my dream city of living in New York. And I sensed God telling me that He didn't bring me this far just to bring me this far. If He did this much for me, trust Him to take me further, to take me the rest of the way, to the point of abundance that I dared to ask Him for, because I didn't want to live a lesser life. I didn't want to live a mediocre, mundane, meaningless, fruitless, purposeless life. And I said I didn't want to praise a God that couldn't do anything. Well, He didn't want to bless a person that wasn't going to be obedient and get into alignment with His will, because there was a lot, and I do mean a lot, He so needed to show me. And I'm so very glad He did. There was a lot of shock and awe to come. But I knew that taking that leap of faith to the new level God wanted to take me to was going to take a lot more than I'd ever given before. I was a believer. But you want me to quit my job? You really want me to quit my job, God? Oh my goodness. It's scary. It's still scary thinking back on it. But who do I trust more? The blessing or the one who gave it to me? But again, I knew that God was about to test me in a major way. And I knew that it was because I was praying to God for the life of abundance and fulfillment that He promises us in Scripture. Well, be careful what you ask for, ladies and gentlemen, because to whom much is given, much is expected. I got really real and candid in prayer because my life had become too mundane for too long. And I was comfortable financially, but I wasn't proud of myself. So I'd been praying to God for a change. I even went so far as to say I didn't want to praise a God that couldn't do anything. And before you all start to gasp, God is not against us questioning Him. He knows who He is, and He'll happily take the opportunity to show what He can do for our lives. But please understand, my sisters and brothers, just as none of us want to praise a God that can't do anything, God doesn't want to bless a person who won't lay down their life for Him, get in alignment with His will, and be obedient. Remember, obedience is worth more than sacrifice. So I'm over here asking for abundance. I'm asking for the best God has to offer, but I'm holding on tight to what I have, what I already know is toxic and unfulfilling, and I'm trusting in that more than Him. And yes, I had a year's worth of savings in the bank, but I didn't want to just blow through my savings. Through prayer, I knew God had more for me, but I knew it wouldn't be at this job. I knew I would have to be obedient and leave, but I also knew I was going to have to go through my Job season, and I promise you I did. And God unmasked a lot of people in my life and showed me their true faces. So for those of you who feel scared when I talk about having to go through the Job season, please note that I am grateful for it. There is nothing I am more grateful for in this entire experience than what God showed me, because I wanted to be permanently rid of them and clear out all the wolves in sheep's clothing that I didn't know I had in my life. I was able to properly identify everyone through my Job season, which I know God was intentional about showing me. But to get into some details, one, I quit my job in April 2019, and I had a year's worth of savings to live off of while I tried to pursue my career in the arts, which I knew God was pushing me to do. Two, that year came and went so fast, and I was down to my last month's rent when, boom, COVID hit. COVID hit in February 2020, and in March of 2020, in New York, there was a new law banning eviction for tenants, banning the eviction of tenants who weren't able to make their rent during COVID. My savings lasted just long enough to cover me until the eviction ban was announced, and I was allowed to stay in my apartment for another 2 years and 3 months before finally moving out. And I was given a grant from the state's rental relief program to cover most of my back rent. But now I heard God constantly telling me to do the thing I never wanted to do, the thing I have never done. Call them, He said. It was literally like that part of the song on Kelly Price's track, Friend of Mine, where Ronald Isley plays her godfather and tells her to put her husband on the line. Her godfather keeps telling her to call him, to confront him with him on the line. And she says, no, I don't want to. And her godfather says, call him right now. And she goes, I'm calling. Y'all know I can't sing, but I tried. But in this case, it was God telling me to call on my friends and family to see if they would do for me what I would do for them. I never like to ask people for help. I won't even let a nice guy help me with my bags when I'm leaving the grocery store. But God was getting louder and louder, and my bank account was getting smaller and smaller, and I kept hearing God say, you need to see this. He knew what I was afraid of. I was afraid people were going to somehow disappoint me. I was afraid people were going to let me down. Even people I've helped the most extensively in the past, both financially and personally, the people I've helped the most were the worst. It was very eye-opening. But God said to call on them. It was time to really find this part out. But God said to call on them now, so you'll know better for later. So I did. God said, I need you to know what I know. I need you to know who they are. So one by one, I started calling on friends and family for help, a place to stay, even a plane ticket. The first friend I called said yes to helping me, and I was so relieved. I was so happy. I said, see, God, she proved me right. I knew I had a true friend in her. But God said, hold up, just wait. So I got to her place, and damn, she agreed to help me, but it turned out to be with a huge chip on her shoulder. And I talk about this part more extensively in my spiritual warfare playlist, chronicling my personal spiritual warfare experience. But to touch on it again, she was very demeaning, she was resentful about helping me, and she took every opportunity to try to put me on blast in front of others for being in this position, for being down and out, for needing to ask for help, and for trusting her to do it privately and respectfully. And let me tell you, I was flabbergasted. You never could have told me that she would switch up on me like that. So when God said to call her, it was because He needed me to know what He already knew about her, which was that she had this secret disdain for me. I was shocked. You never could have told me that she was like that she was petty, or that she would try to cross me. I never would have believed you. And I'm not a fool. I'm telling you, she and I have vacationed together. We used to work together. We've shared our family drama with each other. We talk on the phone regularly from night until sun up. We've spent extensive periods of time together. But it was like, now that she feels like she has the upper hand, now that she doesn't see me as her equal in terms of income, now that she sees me as being nothing more than down and out, now that she sees me in this vulnerable position, it was like she just got so full of herself. And this was a total 180 flip from what I knew her to be. But I'm grateful to know the truth before God moved me forward. And again, there are more details about this part on my Spiritual Warfare Chronicles playlist, which is still up on my channel. So then God was like, you've seen what I needed you to see here, now go call on the other one. I had one other friend left to call. This would actually be the third friend. The first friend in New York showed me her fangs and horns long before I needed to ask her for any help, so I already crossed her off the list. But this third friend I had high hopes for, because again, I had a really great history with her. Tell me why she did the same exact thing. She was demeaning, catty, petty. She tried to shame me in front of other people, the works. So I said, okay, got it. God was telling me, see, you see why I let the bottom fall out? Do you see what I needed you to see? You don't even really know who you have around you. And you think I'm going to let you bring these people with you where I'm taking you? If this is how they treat you when you're down and out, imagine how they're going to feel and what they're going to try to do to you when you surpass them. Remove them now. I was on my knees saying, I see, God. I see what you're doing. But let me tell you, I didn't get this last part at all, because I'd already cut my family off years ago. They were literally the last people I was ever going to go to. And again, this was the bulk of what I had to go through, as I described in my Spiritual Warfare Chronicles. I don't want to drag this out with every single detail of every single event that took place, because there was a lot, but to give you the meat and potatoes of the matter, I moved back home, but my father, who bought the family home, passed away from cancer about 10 years ago at this point. But he always made it clear that if we ever needed to move back home, we could. I would go back to visit, but I'd never moved back into the family home after I left for college, which was when I was 17. I've always been highly and hyper independent before following this call from God. I'd avoided the house since my father passed because one of my family members was constantly fighting to push me and other siblings and family members out of the house due to her own demons. And this person went so far as to get a court order to have me wrongfully arrested and removed from the house. I've never been arrested in my life. I've never been in trouble with the law in any way whatsoever in my life. I've never even had a parking ticket. There are more details on everything that went on in the household and how she got the court order on my Spiritual Warfare playlist. But I was released the next day, and I never had to go to court because the charges were dropped. Now, like I said before, I already knew this woman was wicked, so I didn't know what God really wanted me to see at this point. I already knew this about her. But it was the other people who played a role in all this drama, who tried to make it worse by gossiping and trying to stir the pot and instigating additional conflict. People who added fuel to the fire and found the family drama to be entertaining. Those were the people that I definitely needed to identify. It was very shocking and eye-opening. Also, I needed to see the handwriting of the person who helped her fill out the court order. The person I literally got hit by a car trying to help save and protect. That was the very person who helped fill out this court order. I was hit so hard when I jumped in front of this car to get in between her and the car. I rolled off the hood of the car and landed on pavement and had a black and green bruise on my hip for a good month after this car accident. So God was exposing everybody. And I'm telling you, your enemy will be members of your own family, your own household. So once God cleared out the old, I started to feel a new shift in my spirit. It was time to make room for the new. But first, God told me to share my testimony. I knew that for me, quitting my job was about many things, but the most important of which was proving which God I served, what I truly idolized. and trusted in, and who I believed in to take care of me. Was it God or my job? Did I trust in a steady paycheck more than the God who gave it to me? And all for that toxic, unfulfilling job that was making me sick? At the core of my conversations and consultations with God in prayer for months and months, it was about deciding who and what I was going to put my trust in, who and what I was going to trust my life with. And I trust God. And I just want to share that through it all, God has stayed with me. God is still with me. He continues to cover me. Staying focused on God is what has gotten me through so far, and I know that focusing on God is what will carry me through the rest of the way. Thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I will get back to you. I'll be back with more testimonies and messages. In the meantime, keep your heads up, stay prayed up. I love you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.